Yo, what a wild episode. Like, bro, this was such a enjoyable and wild episode of My Hero Academia today. Seeing Shigaraki's absolute domination, just how overwhelmingly powerful he is such a treat to see animated. Oh my goodness, this is such a good episode. So, let's just get right into it. Let's talk about it. This frame right here, as you can see on the screen, this is just perfection to my eyes personally. Just seeing the overall grin of Shigaraki as he is fighting the number one hero, tanking blows, and even though his quirk was negated in this moment by Aizawa, he is still able to physically fight back against the number one hero and other, top 10 heroes in Japan. And it just, like, when you see this overall expression from him, you see his arm bulking up as he's just pushing himself away and all that. It's just like, holy crap, this dude is freaking strong. So, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Shigaraki's limits. Let's talk about his power. Let's talk about how well Studio Bones did this episode. Let's talk about all of it. So, I love how this episode really just demonstrates very quickly when it starts off just how overwhelmingly powerful Shigaraki is in comparison to Endeavor. Like, when he starts to encounter Endeavor, he launches himself at him, and Endeavor barely dodges. Like, when, he encounters Shigaraki, like, Shigaraki comes in with his hand, and Endeavor has to, like, bend backwards just to be able to not get hit. And let's just talk about how dangerous this situation is, okay? If you get touched by Shigaraki's hand, it's game over. It's over. Like, straight up, you're dead. There's no counter. The only counter is Aizawa, technically. But you're dead if Aizawa is not there. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how strong, etc., you will straight up die. Basically, if All Might himself was here, Prime All Might, okay? We're just doing a hypothetical. If Prime All Might was here, full powered, maxed out, could use all the quirks a part of, One for All and all that. Basically, we would still see All Might get disintegrated if Shigaraki put his hand on All Might. That's the point of the matter here, that Shigaraki is just so deadly just with his base quirk. I mean, I talked about this in my previous video, but this really just shows that you have to fight Shigaraki in such a way where you cannot even let him touch you. If he touches you, it's over. It's like playing a dangerous game of tag, honestly. And I really love the overall vibe and theme that this moment gives. Like, the atmosphere of it that Studio Bones went for in this scene is very dramatic, and it shows that all the heroes are really backed up against the wall, and I like just the contrast of this in comparison to the previous episodes, and let's talk about that. So, most of the previous episodes until, the end of last episode and this episode, we saw the heroes kind of surprise attack, the villains and all that. They raided the hospital, they raided the mansion, and, they were going to get rid of the villains, and it was a nice, refreshing change of pace, because when you think about how these arcs normally go in, like, Shonen, you have it to where the villain is able to power up, and then they're the ones that initiate the attack on, let's say, the heroes. But it wasn't that. In this timeline, or this story, you have it to where the heroes initiate the attack, and the villains were not ready whatsoever. We gotta factor in that Shigaraki, he's not max powered. And from what the machine said, it said he was 75%. And seeing him literally pop off in this episode, like, super strong, going around and demolishing some of these heroes, like even giving Endeavor the slip, it shows just how powerful he is. Imagine if he was at 100%. Think about how ridiculous he would be in this moment from, this episode if he was at max. And another thing, too, to also factor in is that even despite him being nerfed by Aizawa, like Aizawa, blocking him with the quirk and all that we see here, like, with, being able to just completely erase Shigaraki's abilities, Shigaraki has physical strength now, like a perfected Nomu. So even with Aizawa's ability, Shigaraki's going to be able to fight back, physically. He's going to be able to continuously fight back, and I like the fact that we just get to see, like I said, the contrast of how the heroes were winning, and now the villains are winning. And it's refreshing. It's a nice change of pace and all that, because it's like, holy crap, this is the villain. Shigaraki is the villain that has been built up for a very, very long time. Like, the man has literally been built up since the first season, and seeing him finally be really, really powerful and fighting all the heroes is just jaw-dropping. So, I don't know. I really, just first things first, I love this episode. Like, I love the vibes and the tone that it gave, and I think that Studio Bones is just doing an excellent job with this. I mean, I know that there is a lot of reasons why the previous season of My Hero Academia, like Season 5, didn't do that well. I mean, we can say the movie and other external and internal factors of that, but it's nice to see that Season 6 of My Hero Academia is doing a hell of a lot better than the previous season. It is something that really does need to be stated. I know that the art and animation isn't the best, and I guess let's talk about that before I start fanboying a little bit more about this episode. So, if I want to really get into the nitty-gritty, okay, if I want to really critique this episode, or just Season 6 in general, it looks good. Like, it does look good. Like, Season 6 legitimately looks good. It's not perfect, and as I always say, nothing is perfect. But it looks good. It's decent. It's average to above average in a lot of areas. Sometimes it's excellent. And I don't think it's nowhere near how certain segments of, My Hero Academia was for Season 5. I think that Season 6 has definitely been a lot more consistent in terms of quality than the previous season. And even maybe so of Season 4 as well. And so, I will admit, though, that in terms of quality, it definitely, if you're wanting to put side by side, it is not in the same ballpark as, let's say, something like Chainsaw Man, Mob Psycho, and potentially even Bleach. Because it's clear that it can't hold up to those. The staff that's on those studios and the people that are putting all that time and effort into it is just ridiculous. But it doesn't put, My Hero Academia down. I still think that it's a very high quality season and that it looks really good. But I know that there's a lot of people that are going to want to throw this season of My Hero Academia under the bus, because obviously when you have stuff like I said, Bleach, Mob Psycho, and Chainsaw Man to compare it to, you're going to have people like that say, oh, this season of My Hero Academia looks like crap. I don't think it really does. I think it's honestly disingenuous and wrong to say My Hero Academia is ugly this season, because it's like, what's going on with Chainsaw Man and Mob Psycho and Bleach is not normal. It really isn't. It looks great. That is excellent quality what's going on with those anime, but it's really not normal to always expect something like that from every single anime. And I think that My Hero Academia has done a really good job, and it's been very consistent. That's my 2 cents. But okay, anyways, let's get back on topic. Let's talk a little bit more in depth to, this episode. So, I want to say that what makes this episode terrifying is that Izuku cannot hide from Shigaraki. That is something that does need to be mentioned, because we know the true purpose of what Shigaraki is currently after right now is to obtain One for All, which is technically All for One's goal. So we can see that the melding of, All for One within Shigaraki's body has caused some form of issues within him. For instance, this probably is stemming from the fact of the 75%, which is why he's having current issues right now with maybe his mental state, his psyche, and, why he seems a little bit off. It most likely comes down to how his overall, transition of, being a lot stronger at 100% did not, in fact, happen. But it doesn't change the fact, though, that he is chasing down Izuku, and he's obviously terrifying. He's really strong. Even without using Decay, his physical strength is basically at a perfect Nomu level, like high-end level, or even higher than a high-end level Nomu, which is just, that's not something you just, throw aside and say that's nothing. That's incredibly powerful, and he's dangerous. And on top of that as well, he's got regeneration. We see it demonstrated within this episode that he can legitimately regenerate. That already makes him ridiculous. That means that he can basically regen from Endeavor's brutalist attacks. Anything that really pounds him really hard, he's going to be able to regenerate from, and it makes you wonder, if he was to lose limbs, would he also be able to just regenerate his limbs back? It's just like, he is absolutely insane in terms of power, and this kind of puts in perspective. He's chasing down Izuku. He has the search quirk. Like, we literally see in this episode, he's searching Izuku down. He knows where Izuku is. It is definitely a very frightening perspective from the episode, because no matter how far Izuku runs, like if he was wanting to travel across Japan, or maybe even if he was going to a different country like United States or whatever, Shigaraki probably would still be able to find him. And that's what makes the entire moment of this episode when he arrives here so terrifying. There is just nowhere Izuku could go to actually be safe. And I think what also hammers in the power gap difference is this scene right here where there's this image of just Izuku and Bakugo feeling death approaching. They felt like they were literally about to die. Like, you literally see the characters in their mind, they start to crumble away as they're facing Shigaraki because he's just so overwhelmingly strong. This is honestly such a good image to just, like I said, demonstrate the overwhelming might of him if, you know, he is allowed to get his hands on Izuku. So, just big fan. I just love the little details here and there that, you know, Horikoshi Sensei, when he did this moment with the story. I also just love what Studio Bones has done with this episode. But, yeah, just Izuku, he can't get away. That's a really bad thing. So no matter how far he goes, he's gonna get caught. He's gonna have to fight this man. And it's clear he is not ready at all. So yeah, food for thought. Now, let's talk about a few other things, okay? One big thing about this episode that does need to be discussed, though, is that we don't know what quirks he has. That is something that really needs to be hammered home, because from what we saw from this episode of My Hero, the quirks that we are currently aware of Shigaraki having is obviously All for One, but he has his decay, he has, like, radio, and then he has, like, this air pressure, he has regeneration, and we know he has super strength, which isn't really quirk, it's just built into his body. So when you look at all of these things, it's like, what does he really have besides that? Does he have, like, fire abilities? Does he have ice abilities? Does he have lightning? You know, does he have teleportation? You know, there's a lot of things that can make you just absolutely terrified when you think about it, because it's like, this man can have hundreds of quirks, absolutely hundreds upon hundreds of quirks. He can multi-layer stack them on himself and do some ridiculous things. But it's not just that as well. I mean, let's just, like I said, go on with the fact that he might just have like 10 quirks or so, okay? Let's just say he has 10 quirks, or only the quirks that he's currently shown us. He could still get more. Imagine if he got his hands on Aizawa. He's incredibly strong, incredibly fast. He does not need his quirk, technically, to move around or anything, or other quirks. He's already incredibly fast. He's basically Nomu. So it makes you wonder, if he was to get his hands on Eraser, how bad would that be? Like, legitimately think about that. If he was to get Eraser, he would be almost unstoppable. Completely unstoppable, because nobody would be able to stop him. So Aizawa literally is the shining star right now. If he does not be protected, they're all gonna die. That's clear as day with what's going on here. Now, I do want to talk about that, speaking of Aizawa. I think that what this scene does really well, by the way, with Aizawa when he arrives to, you know, block Shigaraki's quirk, I think that they did a good job here kind of shouting out how powerful Crust's scene was. Like, you know, Crust that died in the previous episode, and they did a little brief flashback here in this episode. I'm happy they did that shout out, because I feel like a lot of people, as I said in my previous video, don't give Crust a lot of respect. I really think Crust is an amazing character for how little he was within the manga and in the anime. And I think that with what he did, he literally was the saving grace of everything. Like, if he didn't save Aizawa in that moment, Shigaraki would have already potentially had one for all from Izuku. Crust literally saved the day here. That is something that people need to understand. It's something so minor, has so much significance to the story, and I'm glad that we had, like, another shout-out within this moment of the episode, because Crust, honestly, it hit me emotionally. When I read that in the manga, and when I saw it in the anime last week, it hit me emotionally, because he's like I said, he looks like an All Might impersonator, but the man went dying. Like, he went down dying and smiling. Even though he cried a little bit, he went down smiling, trying to say it's okay, as he was crumbling away, as his body was literally disintegrating to save Aizawa. It's just like, holy crap. What a legend. Honestly, what a freaking legend. But, okay, so let's talk about, potential, I guess, theories of what's going to happen here. Can Endeavor face this man? Can Endeavor bring this man down? Potentially. We don't know, though, because, I mean, when you think about what this fight represents, technically, with Shigaraki versus Endeavor right now, like the number one, it's kind of a rematch of, like, All for One versus All Might. The number one hero versus basically the number one villain. And it's happening again. You have the number one hero versus pretty much the number one villain again. So it's clear that this entire fight is more of, once again, Endeavor having to step up to the plate and having to fight the number one villain. Can he do what All Might did? So, looking forward to that one, honestly. So yeah, overall, is the episode good? It depends on how you view it. I personally enjoyed the episode. I think it's a decent episode. I don't think it is a perfect episode, but I think it's a legitimately fun and enjoyable episode. And that's all I ask for. When I'm watching anime, all I ask for is enjoyment. And that's what it got me. It's nice to wake up to and watch a good My Hero Academia episode. But I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content and you enjoyed this video, do leave me a like. It does help me out a lot. And be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.